Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, hello, my name is Billy Diamond, and you are listening to the Branding for Entertainers podcast. And as you know, we talk about your visual, your verbal, and your virtual brand and why it matters. And when I say we, it's usually a guest alongside of me, and they just throw a lot of gold nuggets out there because they've been in the trenches, in the industry for years, and they really know what they're talking about. And this week, again, is no exception. I brought back my guest from the last episode, and that is Tim Mannix. Tim, in the last episode, shared about how he faced his fears in the entertainment industry and some of his struggles along the way on a personal level and how he got through them. If you haven't heard that, please go back and listen to that. But if not, hey, you're here for this week's episode, and Tim has some really great stuff to talk about this week. And I hope you really enjoy my special guest once again, Tim Mannix. Tim, thank you once again for coming back to the podcast.
Mm-hmm. You are welcome.
Well, it's great to have you back for sure. Let's do this. How about we just pick up with some questions that we didn't really get to address last time?
You can start a whole brand new thing with a brand new question if you want. I'm ready to go.
Let's do this. Let's just jump right back in as if we never even stopped our conversation.
That's fine.
Who's your favorite type of audience to work with or perform for? And by that, I mean like prior to COVID-19.
Oh, yeah, of course. Wow. You know what? I have to say, after all these years, because you kind of figure out what size audience is the best for you. And mine is kind of a medium-sized audience. I've discovered that the parlor, I work a lot in the parlor at the Magic Castle. It seats about 65 people. 65, 75, 85 is a nice round number of people where you've got a sizable crowd, but it's still small enough and intimate enough that there's things you can do that you can't do on stage. You can do some things, a lot of things in the middle, and yet you could still see people's faces in all the way to the end of the theater. So if you're somebody who really likes to connect, and I am, you can see them. You can get their instant reaction to what you're doing.
Very nice, because the man behind this curtain, who needs no introduction, but we'll get one anyway, is a brilliant performer. He's a full-time family entertainer. We love him here at the Magic Castle. We keep bringing him back. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Tim Mannix!
That's neat, though. Not only does it feel intimate, but your audience feels a little closer to you, too, right?
Absolutely. Some people say it's okay to share, or you maybe should reveal something about yourself, kind of allowing your audience to get to know you. But I think you can also do that stylistically, so that the way that you behave, your demeanor, your way of being, all sort of communicates the type of human being that you are. And they can get a real sense of you, and should pretty quickly in the first few moments of your show,
That is branding, sir. Right?
Yeah.
It's branding on a psychological level without necessarily saying it. You just said it, right?
Yeah.
That it really is that. So aside from the magic and aside from that psychology, there is the psychology of that intimate experience and them getting to know you a little bit closer and that feel. And as you said, just to reiterate, you're saying that without necessarily saying something necessarily personal,
right?
It's the way you're carrying yourself in that room. And I would be willing to bet that you carry yourself differently at that venue than you would carry yourself in front of, I don't know, say 5,000, 10,000 people on a large stage.
I was trained in college as an actor and then studied out in Los Angeles for a while. And so if you've had any training like that, you understand that if you're in an environment like that, your actions have to be larger because you're playing to a much larger crowd. It's just like stage actors having to learn how to play small on the television screen or for movies. You don't have to be as big. Mm-hmm. You can show it in your eyes and in your expression rather than in your body. So there's that transference back and forth depending on the venue.
Right. That's great stuff. You covered a lot, even just about branding in that little short of time. That it's not just about the whole idea behind the podcast is talking about your visual, verbal, and virtual brand. You kind of hit on that visual part
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's even without saying anything at all.
Right. Well, and the other thing I think that you really have to come to know as a performer is what is your market? I mean, it's one thing to go for a market, but you might not fit in that market.
Well, sure. And you talked about that as far as like audience size and your most ideal audience size, but your market is certainly different than that.
Sure. Corporate magicians are very different than daycare magicians. Obviously, there's an age thing, but even stylistically, material-wise, personality-wise, you can be a corporate magician and not be a trade show magician. Those are two different animals. So you cannot be all things to all people. You have to find a market or, that you think that you would appeal to or that you'd like to go for, and then model yourself in your marketing. You got to have a picture of yourself in a suit if you're going to market to the trade show folks or the corporate. They don't want, Yum Yum the clown or something. I mean, they might, but you know what I mean? So it's learning about that and developing yourself and your act and your marketing to those markets. Because I don't want to be in every single market. It's overwhelming. It's too much.
Sure. But there are entertainers out there. Regardless of what kind of entertainer they are, they feel like I can do the family market, I can do the nightclub market, I can do the cruise ships.
I agree.
And my own philosophy is kind of exactly what I think you're trying to say is find your comfort zone.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest thing I always try to teach guys is find out who you are first, because that will dictate your market and what you love to do.
Right.
Now, you might be asking yourself, well, how does this relate to branding? Well, it does. And it also relates to marketing, because when you throw so much out there to people about, I do this, it becomes a very confusing message. So they don't know what you do. So if you just tighten it up in your marketing and in your branding, the presentation and the big package on the business end, I guarantee you that you will have a very, very niche market.
It's true.
I think the key is really getting in there and just treating it also like a business, because it is, whether it's full-time or part-time, it's really about not just honing a craft.
Well, and we call it show business. It's interesting that the word show is first, because that is the very last piece of the equation. I mean, other than getting the check, but so much has gone into the whole process, like you're talking about branding and who you are and your craft. And then if you don't advertise or market and study that so you know the difference.
Absolutely is.
And that's changing all the time too, because the whole point of advertising and marketing is to get somebody to raise their hand and go, hey, I got to call that guy, or, hey, we want a show like they had. But really, the sales starts the moment you pick up that phone and they want kind of a description. Well, what do you do? You got to paint a picture for them. Because as bright as some people can be, they just can't get it. They can't understand what you bring. And so you need to tell them and follow up. And then once you have a customer, remarket to the same customer so that you can go back next year or 2 years or 3 years or whatever from now. And it's all business. It's all business. The show is the very last part, So it's not always about being the best singer, the best magician, the best whatever. It's the person that knows how to market themselves and consistently kind of be in front of people so that people take note. The best people are not the hardest working people or not the busiest people. It's the people that really know how to market and be a business person. And that's a little scary to artists, because artists tend to want to do the show and not the business.
Right. And when you say marketing, it's not just about schlepping your name and about how great you are. I mean, marketing, also positioning is here, what is in it for them?
Right.
And painting that picture. That's the key, I think. What's in it for them? They don't, they do care that you're good, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think at the end of the day, that's really all our customers or our clients, whatever you'd like to call them. That's really what they want. What is in it for them?
Mm-hmm.
What experience? What connection? What are they going to walk away with?
Yeah.
And speaking of walking away with, have you ever done a show where maybe you had to put yourself aside and think, yeah, really, what is in it for them? how am I going to service them? How am I going to give them a great brand experience?
Mm-hmm. I did a show out in Ventura. I got to the hotel, and it was 70th birthday for Johnny Cash's first wife, and I'm sorry I don't know her name, but it was Roseanne Cash's mom, and she was there, and her sisters were there. They were lovely. The room was L-shaped.
Oh, my gosh.
So L-shaped, maybe V, maybe call it a V. And the stage was in the middle, and you had one audience to the right and one audience to the left. They couldn't see each other.
Oh, my goodness.
And they would meet in the dance floor. And there was a buffet there, and there was a band behind me. And I was like, oh, my gosh. I did the show. They loved the show. And I personalized it. Whatever the gal's name was turned 70. You know, it was in the Ventura paper, so on and so forth. But I'd never run into a room in that space. And I just, okay, adjust. That's the big operative word, adjust. Because they're not going to adjust to you.
Right.
You have to adjust to them. And you can pre-plan as best you can and try and, but there's just some things you cannot get around.
And, you know, for magic, that can be a real challenge. But I think that's something regardless of what kind of entertainer you are. In a real world scenario, we have our writers and we say we need this and this and this, but the bottom line is when you get there, a lot of times it is vastly different. I mean, unless it's a venue you've been to before that you know, you definitely have to be flexible. Flexibility.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think flexibility goes a long way too.
Big time.
Because you could be a diva, right?
Oh, yeah.
But you'll probably never be back again. So I think that's also part of our job as entertainers.
Right.
As much as it frustrates us, we don't let those things show. We have to push through.
Right.
And just be the entertainer and be on. And really represent our brand in a positive way. Now, ask me how I know. Hey, I'm glad you asked, Tim. It's because for years, having writers and things like that, there are many times where I was a diva, and I realized that I really had to pull myself back many times because I didn't get what I needed or what I wanted. And so when we talk about this, flexibility is totally key. And, you know, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. And I still struggle with that at times, as I think a lot of guys do. But it is possible to represent your brand in a really positive way. So, yeah.
Well, and everybody, whoever you are, you like people that are easy to work with. So be one, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's a little frustrating, but you can't let that show. You know, you just have to, okay, thank you, great, make the adjustment and move on, you know.
It's a fine balance sometimes to get it right and realize that, you know what, we're there to serve people, not the other way around. And man, it's really important that we get it right when we walk into a room, when we do our show.
Yeah.
And we represent our brand, because as creative types, it's really easy to, I need this and I want this, and because you want to give a perfect show, of course.
Right.
But it's so important to have that balance there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's do this. I want to ask you a question, and it'll be great because the listeners will be able to observe this from the outside in. And once you understand the effectiveness of this, you'll be able to take and do the same thing and envelope some of this into your brand as well. Can you give me 5 words or 5 adjectives that you feel describe your brand as Tim Mannix, the performer?
Well, funny has to be number one. And unexpected is another. I use some improv skills in my show. I think the best working guys have some sense of improv skills.
That's good.
Because, you know, if there's a big train blasting a horn right in the middle of the show, you got to address it. You know, it's the elephant in the room.
I was going to say, the elephant in the room, just whatever it is, right?
Yeah, so use it, you know, whatever you say.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is heart. I had a theater director tell me, says, your magic show has more heart in it than any I've seen.
What did that mean?
I think what he meant by that is he can tell that I love what I'm doing. I really love what I'm doing when I'm up there. I'm in the zone.
So even after all these years of being a performer, it's not this
No.
blah. It's different.
I have to change. I mean, I have some standards I do,
Sure.
But I mix and match a lot because I get bored. And if I get bored, it's going to read from the audience.
Yeah.
And so I will change my routines. I'll plug something else in. There are things I've done before, but I just have to mix and match so that it keeps it interesting for me personally.
Sure.
So as long as I'm interested in what I'm doing and I'm interested in the audience and I'm interested in general, the show will be more interesting. So,
Sure.
but I think that's what he meant by your show has heart, is we can really see you are loving what you do. God, I have to say smart Alec. That's the toned down version.
Is that the same as sarcasm or?
Yes, because there's things I just can't not say, you know.
Okay.
When I'm really in the zone and going, sometimes things come out of my mouth and I'm like, I can't believe I just said that. Or I'm almost hearing it when they do, and thank God they laugh, you know, because I'm like, did I go too far? And in my early performing days, I learned you can go too far. You can push it way too far, and then it's hard to get that audience back if you're not careful. So you can walk up to the line, you can live there for a little bit, but don't cross it.
Is there anything that you found that works that you're like, hey, I can take it to here, but I don't know how far I can go?
I read people really well. One of the things I discovered is doing this magic thing is I seem to read personality types really well. So I can make some commentary on them. And everybody's like, do you know her? You know, it's like, no, I just look at her and I see that. So, but you have to keep things generic. You don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. You know, you got to know kids want to have fun, and just people in general want to have fun. And it's never about insulting or hurting their feelings. It's us. We are having a good time. And if they get the laugh, hey, they're paying me to make sure the audience is laughing. It's either coming from me or I've gotten great material from audiences, you know. Oh my God, I got to use that. That's fantastic. So they'll give you some great lines if you let them. And it's just through trial and error. You can't know you've gone too far unless you're out there doing it, you know. But as long as you keep it in the we arena and that we are having fun and we're all on this journey for the next 45 minutes to an hour, you'll be fine.
So what do we got? One more adjective.
One more adjective. I would be. I'm going to say. I'm going to say free. You know, because I'm super comfortable in front of an audience, and I'm unencumbered with myself. I have finally become the most me that I've ever been, and that's the goal,
isn't it? Yes, it is.
And I don't know about other people. Maybe people think that's a stupid comment, but when you're young or when you're encumbered with really caring what people think or all of that ridiculousness, you can't fully be free to say and be precisely who you are. And when I am my freest is when I'm my most funny, when I'm my most generous, when I'm my most self. It's super important. I'm not a stuffed shirt. I'm not uncomfortable. I can be reserved when I want to be, when it's appropriate. But generally speaking, I'm exactly who I am on stage.
Sure.
There's just a larger version of me, you know, out here. I'm the same person. But I can exercise a little more because that's what they pay me for, to be on stage, to be a little more gregarious, a little more funny, a little more whatever.
Absolutely.
You know.
So out of those 5 adjectives or those 5 words that you described, would your 20-year-old self, would you have thought the same thing back then that you say now about you? Because those same things that you're saying, those 5 adjectives, those 5 words about you, are those same things that you're carrying out on stage today. Would you have been able to do that years ago?
No way.
So I think that's a key in teaching people about branding.
Yeah.
Finding out who you are. The sooner you find out about who you are as a person is so much key in the branding realm. And you do, right? I mean, I'm not even second guessing it, and we haven't talked about this prior, but those are the 5 things that I absolutely believe that you carry out on stage. It's not just, but you carry those in your everyday life too, right?
Yeah.
I think those are things that if you can see that on the early onset of your career and find out who you are,
Right.
or find out those things, you don't have to strive. You don't have to try to create this character. You're living those things of who you are as a person, and you're just taking them to the stage.
Right.
You're just extending those things. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I really had to think about those because I'm like, wow, what am I?
Honestly, Tim, those are really, really good. And I think it's a good observation for other entertainers as well to kind of emulate and do the same thing. Because one thing that I know is over the years, I really tried to be somebody I wasn't or somebody I emulated. And it's a really easy pattern to get stuck into. But this is a great tool that somebody can use and a great exercise as well. Listen, we're going to be back with Tim Mannix in just a moment. Stay tuned for more because you're not going to want to miss what is next with Tim Mannix. This is the segment of the podcast where I have a chance to kind of catch up with you a little bit on things that might be a little off topic from a current podcast episode, or sometimes I'll even use it to really drive home something important. In this case today, let's talk about reality. I can't believe that we are just 8 days away from Christmas. I think this has been one of the longest yet shortest years in history. In one sense, it's gone by so fast, and in another, our battle against COVID-19 has made it feel really super long. Now, I hope that you're being safe wherever you are. And I know this year is a little bit more stressful for everyone. Travel plans have changed. Lots of entertainers and people in our industry still either have very little work or none at all. And the list really goes on and on. I just want to encourage you this holiday season to hold on to hope. Also, take time to find joy in the things that are important to you, whether that's friends, family, or perhaps a newfound hobby. If you're not out there performing and doing what you love, work on your business. It's the perfect time to do so. Now, chances are, if you're listening to this podcast, you already have a business mindset and are eager to learn more about the business side of show business. It's my hope to have one more podcast episode for you before we close out 2020. In the next Branding for Entertainers podcast, we're going to talk about how colors affect perceptions and behaviors and whether or not they persuade buyers to consider specific brands or make a purchase. And also, we're going to talk about the importance of color usage within your brand. One final thing to mention. If you go over to our website at brandingentertainers.com, we're running a site-wide sale for all of our products and services. Head on over to the site and you'll see the coupon code for checkout. You'll be able to take advantage of 20% off of everything until December 31st.
This podcast helps entertainers grow and become someone that your clients and audience remember long after your gig is over.
And now, let's get on with our show. If you were a car, Tim Mannix, what brand of car would you be?
Well, this is kind of, I play this game. This is a wonderful game that I play with friends. And so somebody already answered this question. So I kind of get to cheat.
Oh, you're already a step ahead. You're a cheater on this.
I'm a deceiver. But the answer was so good, I'm going to give it to you.
And of course, the follow-up question will be as why. So you already know this. And here it is. I would be an ice cream truck. Wow.
Because I bring so much good, fun, colorful energy into the world and to share.
Oh my gosh. I love that.
Isn't that great?
You're not a Ferrari. You're not a Porsche. You are a freaking bells and whistles, music playing, ice cream truck.
Yep.
I love it.
Isn't that great?
I love it. I love that. Did you have to think about that for a long time? Now, here again, this isn't fair because you've been...
Well, I got to tell you. So here's the game that I play with people. This is... we do this same thing, and I've done it at birthday parties. And here's the killer thing. This is an actor exercise. You learn your essence. And it doesn't matter whether people know you 10 minutes or 10 years, you will find that they answer very similarly because your essence reads whether you know it or not. And so everybody gets a piece of paper and they write Tim on it. They get another piece of paper and they write Billy and Susie. And we go around and we ask those same questions. And you say, if you were an animal, what kind of animal would they be? And they write Jaguar and then a simple reason. I know you don't know these people. Just look at them and give us an answer. And what we found in action exercises when we went out into the world was complete strangers could tell whether you were a jerk or a nice guy or kind of thoughtful or pensive or arrogant, or we gave them a list and they just circled words. And we compared the results tabulated from friends that knew us versus results from complete strangers that never laid eyes on us, and they were virtually the same.
Wow.
It was a wonderful exercise. And so we turned that into a party game, and we do the car. If they were a car, what would they be and why? And an animal and a color, and we do about 5 of them. And we go around and we share. There's so many sweet moments because people are creative and wonderful. And then you get to take all of those pages home from all of those 10 people and read what kind of animal you were and why. It's pretty cool.
That is cool because it does get to the essence and the root of who you are as a person, who you should be as a performer, who you should be as a brand. Really? It does answer those. I mean, when you said, I'm an ice cream truck. I mean,
yep.
Who doesn't want to follow the ice cream truck, right?
That's exactly right.
Who doesn't want to have the good time, have the fun?
Right.
I'm gathering my change right now, Tim. To me, those are really neat, important questions that any entertainer can ask themselves, right? The car, like the things you just said, the car, the animal, all these different things. It doesn't require a whole lot of thought, but it does require thought
right.
as to, well, why?
You could be, what time of day are you and why? The only rule we had for this game is there are no negatives. Sure. It had to be something affirming. But it's a wonderful game.
Here I thought I had something very unique to offer, to ask, to share.
Yeah.
But I do think those are good little arsenal tools that people can ask themselves. And
absolutely.
If you can answer the why to that.
Right. You have to have a why.
I think it also kind of directs you to your market. Not just who you are as a performer, but it directs you to the why of why do I perform in this market and not this market.
You have to have a why. Well, isn't that just, exactly like life itself? If you have a why and it's not big enough, get a bigger why. But you got to have a why. Why are you doing this? Why do you want to go there? Why is that a goal? Well, just because? Can be, but you need a why. Otherwise, the goal is like, well, it's kind of vanilla. It's like, well, why? And that's why in that game, why are they an ice cream truck? That's an interesting choice, but tell us why.
And by the way, why are you the ice cream truck, Tim? Is it because of the fun? Is it because of the vibrant colors? What is that? How does that work for you? How does that work into even your brand as an entertainer?
Well, and because I'm a sensation. Okay. Whether you like it or not, you may not like the flavor, but I'm still an ice cream truck,
That's great, man. That's great.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that. I thought I hear most guys that I talk to when I ask that question, well, I'm a Porsche. I'm luxury. I'm this or I'm
right.
And that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that.
It is.
I never expected you to say I'm an ice cream truck.
Now, and didn't I use the term unexpected as one of my essences?
Yes, you did. Mm-hmm. Isn't that amazing how all that lines up and comes together? These are little things, folks, that you can use to find who you are as a performer. And here again, when you find you and you know who you are as a person, you also know who you are as a performer. Tim, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We really appreciate your time and all that you shared with us. And I wish you the greatest success. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Billy. And thanks, everybody, for listening.
Now, as a little extra bonus to this episode, we put together some free downloadable worksheets for you. You'll be able to find them in the show notes section of the podcast. Within them, you're going to find the things that Tim and I talked about, which of course includes those 5 adjectives or describer words. And it's also going to include the friends and strangers printout to see if you're an ice cream truck like Tim, or maybe the color red, or even perceived as a lion instead of the monkey that you think you are, okay? So we put this together for you as a simple exercise, and through it, you're going to be able to walk away with a little bit more clarity for yourself and your brand. So please feel free to go download those at the conclusion of this episode. And also, as a little extra reminder, if you find this podcast to be helpful, and I hope it is, we'd really appreciate it if you'd rate it and also share it. You can help us by getting the word out so that we can share the business side of show business with others in the industry. So until next time, I'm Billy Diamond, and I want to thank you for listening.